Welcome one. Welcome all. It is week 13. We have 5 milli roundtables to go if you include this one. It is almost the last chapter of the NFL season. And if you're doing best ball, there's only a week and a half left of best ball action. It's going to be a fun time. Snyder, I know you do best ball. I know you've been betting on some college football all day, and I know that we have an entire chat just popping off with MMA, UFC picks, college football, anything that you can ask. I know that it's been a fun time. I don't really watch MMA a ton, but when I do, it's easy to gamble on. It's a free ESPN Plus subscription. But I know that you've been hot on the bet side too, man. How's it been for you today, and how are you doing overall?
Yeah, we finished out November pretty strong, so it was a pretty good day today. Also, I know JBC's been super hot with the premium plays too, so that's been fun to kind of follow that along the last few weeks. Excited to jump into this NFL slate though. Last big college football slate was today. Alabama beat Georgia, so Godspeed to the guys in the playoff committee room. It'll be interesting to see what they do, especially if Florida State wins.
You know, I love pissing off SEC fans, so there should not be an SEC team in the playoff. I mean, you can't play cupcakes all year and call your own conference great and stuff. You know, it should be 2 Big Ten teams like always, the best conference in football. Get Ohio State in there for the rematch. But no, in all seriousness, I think Texas should get in over Alabama. I just think that team with Quinn Ewers, it's a different team, and that Texas team looked terrible with Malik Murphy, but tale of two teams there with different quarterbacks. I know FSU game tonight hinges a lot on the playoff spot, but we don't have to talk college football today. It'll be a 2-man booth. It'll just be me and you, Snyder, tonight. Drew is out celebrating his daughter's birthday, so happy birthday to Drew's daughter. And we'll go ahead and dive into this 10-game NFL slate. We got a bunch of good spots, and you mentioned some weather concerns in a few games in the Northeast, and we'll go ahead and touch up on it all. And one of the first games could be one of those weather issues, and it's the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the New England Patriots. And if you want to follow along with SaberSim, we have the entire chance to sign up for 44% off with code GIBLETS44. So 44% off your first payment on month or week. Snyder, there is only one guy projected for double-digit ownership, or 3 guys, I should say. They just creep over the 10% mark. Ramondre Stevenson at 15%. Keenan Allen at 13%. He's questionable. I have not seen any news of whether he's going to be a for sure in or out. And the Patriots defense at 10% at 2,400. Other than that, the ownership completely dips off. And obviously, the Chargers have been a struggling defense. We know that the Patriots quarterback room is going to look different this week with Zappe starting and then packages from Malik Cunningham. What are you doing with this first game? It's going to be a low-owned one. It's going to be a weather. It's going to be really gross. But what are you doing with it overall?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to look to avoid this game. It's going to have some bad weather here. We're going to see gusts 20 to 25 miles an hour with a steady rain all game long, it looks like. I see definite rain, 99% chance of rain throughout the game. So I think this is a game where maybe I'll just even bet the under or something because I really don't want anything to do with this. We got Bailey Zappe here. Maybe I could go with the Patriots defense. They're at 2,400. They've been playing decently scoring-wise, DFS-wise. 12 last week, 6, 8. I'd take 8 points. If you could guarantee me 8 points for 2.4K, I would almost lock him on every team. So I think I'm going to have some interest in the Patriots defense here in this weather game against I don't think the Chargers are that good, mainly with the coaching there. They do have some talent there, but I think I'm going to be underweight on Stevenson. Maybe I'll have him a little bit with the defense, but I think it's going to be kind of a cross-off game for us to start this off. Plenty other better opportunities, I feel, on this slate. So mainly just the Patriots defense for me and potentially some Stevenson.
See, it's one of those things, too, where you look at it from a coaching perspective, right? Brandon Staley is very much under the hot seat, and he might be gone as soon as the season ends. I think there was a report this week by Diana Rossini who said that this is basically a cleaning house will happen in Los Angeles after the season. You have a whole bunch of players who just ultimately, I don't think, are backing the coaching staff completely. Kellen Moore is just not what we thought he'd be coming into the season. And you just get a gross game with gross weather. And like you said, the Patriots defense at 2,400 can make a lot work. And you're getting an offense, that's not really clicking on all cylinders, could be missing a lot of its top talent at wide receiver, especially if Keenan Allen's out. You're going to have Quentin Johnston as the number 1 wide receiver. It's going to be tough to even trust this offense to move the ball. And that's not to say that the Patriots are some gauntlet. But you're getting a 2,400 defense, probably one of the most popular pieces of this game in general. And it makes sense why the Ramondre Stevenson's gaining a little bit of ownership. People might want to pair him with the defense, and creates that little bit of correlation. But yeah, I think you hit the hammer on the nail there. We don't have to play anyone from this game really. I don't think you're getting smart by going like Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, projecting for a little bit of ownership. If anyone, Devontae Parker will probably play a lot of snaps and stuff, but with that quarterback situation, why chase it? The Keenan Allen news, though, could definitely impact the slate a little bit, because if you are getting Keenan Allen out, we could get Jalen Guyton basically leading that wide receiving core at 3,300. Quentin Johnston, well, I don't even know what price he is, but he's not even on here expected to be owned at all. It's just a gross slate overall. Is Quentin Johnston's given a 5-point projection? That's just disrespectful, Snyder. Crazy how low he is. But yeah, keep an eye on the Keenan Allen news. It's mostly just the Patriots and Ramondre Stevenson. So
let me check the notes on Quentin Johnson. Yeah, he sucks.
It's certainly been the case this entire year, even with all the injuries he's had. If Allen was out, we have a good question from Chris Ostro. Would you have any interest in Austin Eckler if Keenan Allen was out?
I don't think so. I think this is just kind of a game here. I just don't want to get overly incorporated on this game. Too big of price tags on those people. Probably would just rather be off of them.
Yeah, it makes sense there. I mean, it does certainly would give him a bump, but as it was mentioned earlier, by crew 1124, running back is loaded this slate. And it is definitely something to kind of keep your eyes on. You don't really want to fiddle with a bad offense for the most part. And, we can go ahead and safely move on to the next game, Snyder. If you guys have any questions in the chat about the game that we're currently talking about, feel free to put them into the chat as well here in the YouTube chat. And we'll try and get to them as much as possible, because we're going to have a little bit of extra time in a two-man booth. We have the next game here. It is the Denver Broncos going against the Houston Texans. This game has a mid-40s, almost high 40s total. The Texans have been clicking on all cylinders with the pace of the offense. CJ Stroud has looked absolutely magnificent. A lot of big plays last game taken back by the refs. It seemed like a little bit like Tank Dell should have had like 120 yards or whatever that he got robbed of. It's an interesting one, because no matter what game the Texans are playing, they're getting a lot of ownership. We have a very large injury concern here. And it's Dalton Schultz. If he is out, you get a big boost to maybe this tight end room, where you get Brevin Jordan projected to be 26% owned, Snyder. That's going to be the highest in this game. Also, some other spots who are going to be really chalk. It is Javonte Williams at 23, Cortland Sutton at 17, and then Russell Wilson, believe it or not, at 15%. Now, I don't know about you, Snyder, but if I see that Broncos are chalk, I'm going to run the other direction usually. I know it's the pace of play is a big thing. This is an offense that doesn't really match the pace of their opponents. They try and slow the game down. We had a game where Russell Wilson has had to chuck it 30 times on their winning streak? I don't think we have. I'll get to that after I'm done talking, but let me know what you're doing with this Broncos chalk. And also just talk about the Texan side, because we can't ignore them. I mean, they're obviously clicking in every facet. CJ Stroud's an absolute star. And what are you doing with this one?
Yeah, this game's interesting. It opened as a 4-point spread. We've actually seen quite a bit of sharp money coming in on the Broncos side. There's down to 3. I think this is a good game where we can target, though, from both sides. We could see some back and forth in this game. I do really like the chalk of Brevin Jordan, though. I've mentioned this countless times in the articles. The Showdown articles are on the show. I love targeting Denver with the tight ends there. Denver has given up 18, 24, 16, 16, 27, 15, and 33 points to tight ends this year, to the tight end position. So absolutely love the 2.5K, almost like a free square, I think. So I'll be way overweight on Jordan here at the min price here. We don't typically see tight ends at the 2.5K price tag, so definitely going to take advantage of that. And in one of the best matchups for tight ends in the whole NFL, so definitely like that. Russell Wilson as chalk at 5.7. I don't know if I can quite get there though, because we're gonna see all these Broncos as pretty highly owned guys. I mean, Cortland Sutton's gonna be probably 20 to 25% owned. Russell Wilson could reach 15%, which is actually pretty high for a quarterback. So I thought Russell Wilson really hasn't done anything to beat you this year either. He hasn't scored over 20 points in 7 games. So I think I'm going to be off of Russell Wilson. Maybe play Cortland Sutton as a one-off, but that guy has just been living just so good on the TD variance. I mean, the dude scores a touchdown every week. You'd think it would finally stop. Last week it did after like 6 straight weeks of touchdowns, but I don't think Cortland Sutton has that massive ceiling either. 5,400, you don't need to put up 30, but he hasn't really even put up 20 that much. So for tournaments like the Million Maker, I think it's a good option to get off them. I could see this game kind of playing slower also, as aside from tight ends, this Denver defense has played much better during their 5-game winning streak. They've been really good against quarterbacks. They've been good against wide receivers, just not the tight end. So we could see an interesting, maybe a slower slog here, potentially like a 17-20 type game or something. Going to be a little underweight on it. I mean, Javonte Williams is another guy that's going to carry probably close to 20% ownership. Javonte Williams really hasn't had those massive games either. You still have to worry about P. Ryan there as well. Just pulling up Javonte stuff. He's playing majority of the snaps, but he's only had one game over 20 points this year, 18 carries, averaging under 4 yards a carry in his last 5 games. Is seeing some work in the passing game, though, but I think P. Ryan's going to be the main focal point there. Maybe a tournament, a Million Maker play would be to jump on P. Ryan here at 4.8K, as he's actually played well the last 2 games, 13 points in the last 2 games, found the end zone on the ground last week as well. Isn't getting that many snaps, though. He'll probably play around 20 to 25 snaps again this week, I bet. But he did see 7 catches last week or 2 weeks ago against the Vikings. So P. Ryan could be a sneaky guy for the Million Maker if you're looking for like a dart throw or something like that. And then from the Houston side, I think Tank Dell is questionable. It sounds like Noah Brown's probably going to be out. And then we're going to get Nico Collins here at 6.8K. I do worry about Nico Collins going up against Patrick Surtain, though. Patrick Surtain's one of the best coverage cornerbacks in the league, but Nico Collins had a big week last week. He saw 11 targets in the first week he came back, and then last week he saw 9 targets, caught 7 balls in both of them. Last week he hit the century mark with a touchdown. So I think Nico Collins is a good lower owned GPP play. I think he's going to be under 10%, and I really like Nico for tournaments if you're going from the other side. I'll definitely be playing Brevin Jordan, though, but I like Collins as well as more of a lower owned guy in this game.
Yeah, no, it's certainly interesting. And I do like the Texans side a little bit more. And I know why a lot of people are going for these Broncos guys, because they're relatively cheap in this game environment, right? It's a game in the, like I said, mid-40s, kind of high 40s for the most part. I also kind of agree that 15% feels a little bit high, because I think there's a stigma around Russell Wilson. I think it's rightfully so that like his upside has been really limited since coming into Denver. There's sun running on touchdowns for the most part. I don't know again with the term sun running, but like that's basically what it is. Like, he's throwing 3 touchdowns in games that he throws like 20 passes or whatever, right? That's just not sustainable. However, if they do go down early against this Texans team, maybe they get a lot of possessions, and that ultimately could boost the floors of guys like Javonte Williams, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. I am not playing at 23% on Javonte Williams. I mean, that he just splits so much work. You're getting at best 60% of the snaps. It's concerning to me. I know why, right? The Texans' run defense can be a little bit exposed at times. They're not the greatest against running backs in the world. However, it's still this Denver offense that ultimately is not great, and I just don't love it. I don't get why anyone would play him at chalk, and I get nervous playing him on a showdown slate alone when I got 9 other games to choose from. We got a free square with Zach Moss for the most part that we're going to get to a little bit later. I don't get the Javonte one bit. I mean, I can get why people are on Cortland Sutton wanting to chase that touchdown variance and stuff, but Russell Wilson. I'm out on that, especially if he's going to be coming in at 15% ownership. That's a hard pass for me. But yeah, Brevin Jordan, I'm with you there. I played Njoku over McBride. It ended up costing me about 6,000 in the Wildcat on the afternoon only, and that's because it was a 1v1 pivot off a chalk lineup. But I do like attacking tight ends against Denver, and that was Njoku. Njoku dropped a couple passes too. I won't forget that. But yeah, it's going to be the theme there. Brevin Jordan had a big catch late in that 2-minute drill against the Jaguars as well. It wasn't like CJ Stroud wasn't looking for him and stuff. So I do think that he can trust them a bit in 2,500 and allows you to fit these studs that we're going to talk about in the next game. The next game, you ask, It is the Miami Dolphins at the Washington Commanders. As we know, the Washington secondary is an absolute dumpster fire. They just fired their defensive coordinator. And maybe this defense gets a little bit better, but I don't think they can, Snyder. We get Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, two of the best wide receivers in the game, one of the best schemers in the game with Mike McDaniel. How do we avoid, playing Miami? Because in my eyes, I don't think I can avoid playing Tyreek Hill. And I do want to get your take on a double stack. Because many people kind of had this notion that, oh man, you don't want to double stack, your wide receivers, right? I think there's a legit shot that like Tua could just throw 400 yards tomorrow. I don't really want to double stack either. But you're getting Tua Tagovailoa at 5% ownership in the best spot in the NFL for opposing quarterbacks for better or for worse. It's definitely top 5. The only player projected above 13% ownership is Tyreek Hill. Snyder. He is projected for 27%, probably the most chalky stud on the entire slate. Other than that, it is Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, and Sam Howell, all projected in between 10 and 12%. Why aren't the Dolphins more popular, and specifically Jalen Waddle? And even a guy like A-Chain, who is back in the mix. I know that we had this conversation last time. A-Chain is 6,900 and stuff. But it just seems like, why would we want to avoid the Miami Dolphins here? Why would we?
Yeah, I think this is a great spot for the Dolphins here against a great passing attack here against this Washington team. I ran the Sims. I just did a 150 base run, ran the Sims. And Sam Howell was the number 3 quarterback in the base run of Sims for the Million Maker contest using that RAROI with 2 uniques. And then Tyreek Hill was the second player overall in the Sims from all positions there. This is just an absolute nut spot for Tyreek Hill against this defense. The one pause I will have against double stacking this is just basically with the Dolphins. They went to more of a balanced approach. They're incorporating the run a lot more, which does open up the pass a little bit more. So I think that's the one thing that's limiting me from double stacking with Tua here. I'd much rather just plug in Tyreek. I think Tyreek's averaging like 25, 27, 28 DraftKings points per game or something like that. You just plug him in there. I know he costs a lot, 9.6K. It's cheaper, though, than on FanDuel. I think FanDuel is 10K, which, that's tough to fit him in over on FanDuel at 10K flat. But, he's just been almost like a cheat code. You can almost plug him in for 7 catches for 120 yards and at least 1 touchdown almost. I think that's right around where he'll be. The problem with a Chan there, why I don't think he's going to be that high owned is it's tough to really project him. I think a lot of these optimizers like SaberSim and stuff, they really can't account for a guy that may touch the ball, 10 times, but he could bust one off for 60 yards or not. I think that's something that kind of limits the optimizers from getting him in there, because I'm seeing him right around 5 to 7% ownership on this slate. So he's definitely a great GPP play for like the Million Maker, though, on that standpoint there. And Jalen Waddle is a great tournament play. He's been a guy I've been looking at here over the last couple of weeks. He'll be definitely under 10% like he has been recently. Last week was a solid game for him there. I played him last week. He caught all 8 targets, hit the 100-yard bonus, just hasn't found the end zone that much recently. I think it's been 3 games since he found the end zone. Maybe he's the guy that finds the end zone here. I definitely like taking some shots on Waddle, though, in tournaments and such, though. So I'm definitely going to be high on them. But I actually think Washington keeps this game close. I like Washington. I like them plus the points in this game. I think Sam Howell's going to do enough to keep this game close. So I want to have some Howell stacks in my portfolio as well this week. I really like Curtis Samuel's cheap price tag of 4.1K coming off a big game last week. I think Logan Thomas is viable. And then I always go with Dotson over McLaurin, so I'm going to keep going with that path there. I like the price tag and the upside for Dotson at 4.6K.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. And you think you explained it perfectly there. I do think it's worth kind of mixing in like guys like a double stacks with Hill and Waddle, because I think the Sims like that a lot more than us. And we do get a third take on this game. We get the best in the business, at being the best League of Legends player in the business at Run Pure Sports, right? And his name is none other than Travis Mangone, who is now coming in at the perfect time because to talk about my favorite game, the Dolphins and Commanders. First off, I'd like to get settled, man, going. Let the people bask in your presence real quick. I'll kind of give you a little bit of a delay, but thank you for joining us. And I hate to just start you off with the best game on the slate. We got worked in with the Chargers and the Broncos, but you're getting thrown into the fire here. What are you doing with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in this game tomorrow?
It sounds like I haven't missed much either. So have you done 2 games so far, Rubio? Is that correct?
We were done with the third until you hopped on.
Oh, well, but the first 2, just so I can button these up just to catch up. Like for one, Patriots and Chargers, I'm not that interested. I will say a couple things. Bailey Zappe's going to be the quarterback. Malik Cunningham is going to maybe take some weird snaps and do some, weird packages. I don't really care about that. But like if Ezekiel Elliott sits, I know he was questionable. I think Stevenson is an actual viable play. And it's worth mentioning Bailey Zappe was throwing to Thornton the most, I believe. I think that was the guy who targeted the most. So if you wanted a full punt, you're messing around. I just don't know if you need to get there with that. And then did we get the status? I know I'm coming in late. Did we get the status on the Josh Palmer stuff, or is he out still?
I thought Palmer was out for.
I thought he was out, but I'm not sure.
I didn't think it was even a chance.
Gotcha. I was listening to ODB and them, and they were on Wednesday, so I heard they were talking about the possibility of him. So I was wondering. And then the Broncos game. So am I on an island here? I think this is bad chalk. Like just in general. I'm not saying all of it's bad, but I'm just saying like in general, like if we had to just define it, I'm defining bad chalk. The reason I'm defining bad chalk on it is, one, I don't think anyone's noticed why the Broncos are good. They're slow tempo, balanced attack. Like it's just, I don't know. It's like the football guy take, right? It's not the, it's not the like, oh, it's Russell Wilson. He's going to chuck it around. Like, and his price is good. It's just from watching them play, if they have control of the game by running the ball and just kind of having a balanced attack where you do a play action on a 3rd and 2, right? Or you just look for the opportunity to take the deep shot. Like that's just what this team is. And honestly, it's a good team. It's not a Super Bowl team, but it's a team that can compete and play in football games. I don't think it's the best chalk. I was in a debate on a 2v2 for cash games, and it was Deontay Johnson and Brock Purdy versus Russell Wilson and Sutton. And I was like, I'm going Purdy every time. I just think the Purdy route is better. I also, small nugget I had read up on is, I believe this is a harder matchup for Sutton, like the zone versus the man stuff, right? And not saying that Jerry Jeudy is the guy to target. He does, I think, get open more in these spots. But the only issue I would have is like, sure, he gets open, but he can't catch shit. He might still stay in the pool as like a contrarian play, but not a lot of exposure. And then the Texans, you can definitely make a pretty strong case for like, I was thinking early on, like when CJ Stroud was emerging, we should just like consider playing him and just not even caring and just being like, he's him and let's play him and his pass catchers. And it's worked out well. If you've been riding that train, which I've rode it a little bit, maybe not as much as I wish, but I don't think the CJ Stroud stacks are the worst, especially with a pair up with a Brevin Jordan or paired up with like a Tank Dell or Nico Collins. I'm not dying to get to this Broncos side. The Broncos side, I'm really going to be much lower on. The Miami thing is interesting. This is like the interesting part of the slate because I really think you have to make a decision on a lot of your, if you're MMEing, right, you're just kind of clicking the buttons, you're upping the guys you want. And sure, there's some teams you're not going to have with Miami naturally. But like, if you're someone that hand builds or a single entry 3-max guy, like when you go in there and build your teams, like it's very difficult to not get a piece of Miami, right? The natural build of a hand builder is, let me look at this Eagles game and Niners. I want to get a piece of that. It's a good total. I want to find a way to get a piece of the Dolphins. I don't necessarily think just getting a piece of the Dolphins is like for sure the correct way to go about it. Like, I think you want, like, if Tyreek has a big game, I think a lot of these other guys go off too, right? Like, I'm okay with like the stacks. I'm not going to the doubles with like Jalen Waddle just because when you play Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle, it's just so pricey for me where I'm not in love with that stack. And I prefer to get one of the running backs instead. So I think I prefer like the 3-mans like that if I had to pick. And then Washington's tough because like they do spread it out a bit. Brian Robinson at 6.1K. He's in that like mix of running backs who can play this week. We'll obviously get to Zach Moss and we'll talk about running back as a whole when we get there because that's one of the biggest talking points on the slate along with how do you handle Miami. But I think I just prefer the cheaper options of Dotson and Samuel. I just prefer other options to Terry McLaurin. Now, if I got like 3% Terry McLaurin when I ran stuff, would I like blow everything up? No, but I just think I prefer to be overweight on Dotson and Samuel instead. Those are the guys I would target. I think Logan Thomas is an intriguing option. I pretty much liked him every single week, and I'm going to continue to like him, especially with the way that he's spreading it out. Remember, the Kansas City offense, yes, they are tight end heavy, but they're tight end heavy because of Travis Kelce. But I just think that's how that offensive coordinator designs things, right? They still design stuff for what's his name? I was going to say Noah Gray. Is it Gray? I forget his name. What is the backup tight end's name?
For the Chiefs?
Yeah, for the Chiefs. Is it Noah Gray?
Yeah.
Okay. I was getting confused with Fant for a second. My mind was going crazy, but I just think the tight ends are heavier in this type of schematic offense where I want to target Logan Thomas pretty much the rest of the season as long as the price isn't too high, especially if it's a game we're trying to target. So I think Logan Thomas is pretty good. Tyreek is I think he's the best play on the slate. I actually think it could be. You could argue it might be better than McCaffrey. We can discuss that when we get to CMC because it's a really interesting conversation. I still have a little bit more research I want to do to dive in on that. But Tyreek, one of the best plays on the slate. You want to be overweight on him. I'm going to be overweight. I don't care. I'll have some Tua in there. And then I'll have Mostert and a chain mixed in. It's really mainly those guys, though. I'm not really liking Jalen Waddle at his price, like I said. I don't want to mix in these other guys. I just don't think it's that necessary. Should we? I don't know if you guys had a take on the Braxton Berrios, the Wilsons, all these the Durham Smithies. I don't know. I feel like we're just burning money on them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it kind of, for the most part. I think it's a little bit too gross on this. I don't mind it if it's part of a double with Tua.
Yeah.
If you had Tyreek or Waddle, because we saw it with the Cowboys. I mean, you had Jalen Tolbert get a couple big catches. You had Kevontae Turpin run down the field wide open. You might have a chance for one of these guys just hits a long touchdown, right? Yeah. And it is mid-price. I don't really want to chase.
Where are the chances that Smythe outscores Brevin Jordan, though? I think that's just a little too thin there.
Yeah, I think Durham Smythe's going to get 2 targets, right? Even Jake Ferguson had 1 catch last week, right? It's all the wide receivers in this spot.
Rubio, here's my opinion on some of these cheap guys. And maybe it's a bad opinion, but I'd like to hear you guys' take. So, Snyder, you sweated out that one day I had Odell Beckham. Remember? I just needed him to get a damn touchdown, and I would have won everything on FanDuel. And I literally got leaped by the Rashee Rice teams. And this is when Rashee Rice was dirt cheap. And it just made me realize these really cheap receivers, I don't know how much you need to prioritize them in 2-mans, right? I don't think if you fall on it, it's fine. But I think the key to these cheap receivers is a lot of their ceilings. One thing I might mess with and just kind of run tonight just to see how it looks is I might bump up some of these cheap guys to more of what their ceiling projection I think could be, and then see what that shakes up as. I know that can mess some things up and give me more stars and scrub builds, but I kind of want stars and scrub builds, I think, more this week, just because I want to get the CMCs and the Tyreek Hills, and I think it's the correct route. So I also don't want to, like I said, I don't want to have a double that goes it just goes River Craycraft, Braxton Berrios, or Cedric Wilson, when there might be a better 3K guy there, right? It's just something to kind of think about. I don't think it's a necessity.
Are you worried about the Miami being more of a balanced offense too over the last few weeks? They've kind of went towards more of a run and pass, kind of even split run there, where that's why I kind of limit or shy away from going to a doubles there.
I don't go to a doubles mainly, and I assume by doubles you mean you're not including the running back, correct?
No.
Yeah, my reasoning is more the pricing. It's just it's too expensive. Not go into DraftKings right now, plug in Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle, and it's expensive, man. It's just you run out of salary for stuff. So that's more my reasoning behind it. Sure, you can make the case for these Berrios and Wilsons and Craycraft. I just don't think if they beat me, they beat me. And sure, if I land on 2%, I won't blow it up, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, perfect. I think we spent a lot of time on that game. Real quick, just to kind of go over this. Scott Foster said he got a present for Kurt's new baby. I assume it's a Chris Paul jersey. Tank Dell, questionable or probable. Tank Dell is expected to play as things stand when I last looked. And real quick, Brad, real fast. Jalen Waddle's only projected for 6-7% ownership right now. Ownerships have been a little wacky over the last couple of weeks, without a doubt. But I don't think you get balloons up that high. I think I'd be surprised to see him in the teens just because the 7K wide receiver range is loaded, and Tyreek Hill is going to be uber popular as well. So, just keep track of that. And I think we're safe to move on to the next game, another Northeast gross game, Snyder. We get the Falcons and the Jets. So the Falcons defense is over 25% owned, or expected to be over 25% owned for this one. And it's Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall, the only two guys above 5% here. Breece Hall is actually at 12, and Bijan's actually at 6.5% here. It's a gross game. It's got weather concerns, Snyder. We did see Bijan. He is, I guess I can't say it because Algier and Cordero Patterson both got a lot of work last week. But Bijan seems like they told Arthur Smith that he's got to get 20 touches or you're gone by the end of the season, because he did get a lot of work last week. Do you have any interest in him and maybe the Falcons defense as well?
This is kind of a gross game for me. I like the Jets from a betting standpoint in this game. I think they're going to win this game, mainly off the backs of their defense there. I know you get the quarterback change here with Tim Boyle coming in. He doesn't really spark any fear into any team he's going against, but we got a really low total here. We're going to see weather involved in this game too. It's going to be right around 80 to 90% chance of rain the whole game. We're going to see winds in the 15 to 20 miles an hour range. I think we got two bad quarterbacks here in Ritter and Boyle. And I think the defense from the Jets is basically going to win this game. I could see this game being like a 9-3 game or something nasty like that almost. Really not too much for me in this. I will try and get some of the Jets defense, though, in this. I think they could put up double-digit points in this game again like they have quite often this season. I think they put up double-digit points 5 or 6 times this year. I don't think I'm going to get to Bijan. I played him last week. I just don't think I need to get to him this week when there's way better options, I think. I think there's too much opportunity cost this week to try and jam in a Bijan or a Breece Hall. So this is kind of just like a cross-off game for me here. I'll try and sneak in maybe both defenses even. I think you could play both defenses in this game if you want, but really don't have any exposure or any conviction to any one player in this game.
Yeah, 100%. And man, do you think differently of Bijan just with the way that the Jets kind of funnel you into the run and, get a lot of fantasy points for the running backs? We saw it with Mostert last week and even Jeff Wilson. And maybe you have a different take. And I do like what Snyder said about is it leverage when it's another defense in the same game? But like the leverage off of Falcons defense being super chalk. And literally for 100 more, you get the Jets there at 2% owned in a game that's, what is it, a 3-point spread right now? So I don't know. What do you think, Mango?
Yeah, I understand the defense take that Snyder has. Like, I think both these defenses are in play, and that's really it for me. I don't want to get to Bijan that much. I should look at his FanDuel price just because I know he has been enticing, and I haven't ran enough FanDuel stuff yet, but he is over on that site. He has specifically had some decent price tags at some point. So let me just pull it up real quick, unless one of you guys know it off the top of your head, but I just want to double check it. He is 8-1. That is too damn high, as the memes say. So I'm out on Bijan. And I just don't think this is a great game to target. I mean, Desmond Ritter against this Jets defense. This is a great game to stay away from. Just defenses only for me.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Breece Hall coming in with a slight hamstring concern. I have read some Twitter doctor stuff. They said it probably won't have a huge performance impact, but it is a slick surface. I don't love that for a hamstring problem at all. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I have a little bit more Bijan interest as long as he's 6K on DraftKings, just because, he's a top 10 talent, top 5 running back in the league, in my opinion, talent-wise. I just think 20 touches is never something you really want to ignore, and I have been playing him way more than I probably thought I would this season. So I'll just continue to chase that dragon, and hopefully it hits. Well, we did get the success last week, and it barely paid off for me. But we'll go ahead and move on from that gross game to a reborn offense, a rejuvenated offense, one without Matt Canada that goes ahead and puts up 400 yards for the first time in like 100 games or something. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers in the nut spot against the Arizona Cardinals, too, one of the worst defenses in the league. The one red flag with the Steelers, it's not really a red flag. It's split backfield. Goodness gracious. With Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. And you get Deontay Johnson here at over 12%. Jaylen Warren was super high owned last week, and that was not really expected on the projected ownerships. It was mostly all Jaylen Warren's going to come in a little bit lower owned. It was 5,400 then. And turns out he was like over 20% in some contests. This week he is projecting for over 20%. Najee Harris is at 8%. It seems like the interest would be just kind of on one side because you get Minka Fitzpatrick back to help out this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. You still get Trey McBride. He is questionable. I actually don't know his status. He's the only Cardinal projected for above 15%. I'm going to go ahead and kick it to you, Snyder. Do you have any interest in this game? And if so, is it mostly just on the Steelers side of the ball?
Yeah, mainly just with the Pittsburgh side here. I really like Jaylen Warren here in this spot. I've been attacking Cardinals against the running back. We saw what Kyren Williams did last week against them. I think Jaylen Warren has that pop in his step. We saw him break off that long run a couple weeks ago. I think he's kind of gravitating in towards the 1A in this backfield. So definitely I'm going to go to Warren. He saw his snaps increase last week from the week before where he only saw 9 carries and had 129 yards, had 101 before that, had an 88. I think we see Warren go for 100 plus and a touchdown here. And at 5,400, I'm going to be highly invested in Warren here. I really like the spot here. It's pretty much the nut matchup, like you said. I really don't. I see some people trying to make the Steelers passing game work. Like some people are talking up Kenny Pickett. I don't think Kenny Pickett is that good at all. I don't think I'll be playing Kenny Pickett, but I guess I wouldn't hurt you if you wanted to play like a Pickett, Deontay, if that intrigues you there. But Pickett he's literally scored over 10 points once in the last 3 games, and that was 11.6 points. I think I'm going to be avoiding the Kenny Pickett here. I don't think he gets too popular, but I think we could see him in that 5 to 7% range. I will be off of Pickett, but I don't mind Deontay if you want to go there. It's like a one-off. I think George Pickens is a solid upside play. He's a guy that they look to in the red zone there. He's got that big play upside. If Pickett is able to find someone on a deeper ball, it would definitely be Pickens there. But I'm really invested in Jaylen Warren here. I really like him. He's one of my top options here in this running back position this week.
Yeah, it makes sense here. And just kind of going over some of the stuff that RPS offers, Statsational does a great job, putting up some data here on the site over basically the rolling NFL season. And it breaks it down to how these defenses have performed over the entire season and also the last 5 weeks. Over the last 5 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals have been the worst defense, second worst defense against running backs. The worst is actually surprising to me. It is the Washington Commanders. And this is nothing like advanced stats or anything like that. It's basically just fantasy points conceded to the position, right? Arizona Cardinals there. And then on the Pittsburgh side of things, they've been really good over the last 5 weeks with no real concern or anything like that. Mangone, we do have a comment here about Pat Freiermuth. He looked really good last week against the Bengals. He was over the middle. He was Kenny Pickett's security blanket and went over 100 yards. Do you have any interest in him? And go ahead and give your Warren take because like Brad mentions, Warren's gotten there in recent weeks with a long run, right? It's nothing that nothing too concerning in my eyes because I do think that his touches are trending upwards anyway, but he has been explosive. And if you don't get that boom, he could bust like he did last week, right?
Yeah, I think he's worth taking a chance on with the boom at the price. I just think it's too good to pass up on. Even at the price, sure, if he doesn't boom for you, right, he's not going to help you win a tournament, but what the salary does for your teams, I think is just too good to pass up on, especially in the Stars and Scrubs build. So I like Jaylen Warren for sure. I don't mind Kenny Pickett. Now, I've never really ever been on the Kenny Pickett train, so I'm hopping on, I guess, first time grabbing a ticket. I'm not saying you should have a lot, but I just think at 5.1K, with the way that this slate is being constructed right now, if you need Christian McCaffrey, right, to ship, and you need Tyreek Hill, well, you are going to need that cheap quarterback construction. I think that's one thing kind of to call out. I think it's naturally going to lead you that way. So, and that's why I think Brock Purdy is going to be one of the better quarterbacks on the slate. But I'm not going to X out my Kenny Pickett chips. I won't need many to get over the field. I'll probably won't need much. I'll probably need just 1 or 2, but it's just not going to take much to get over. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't mind, too, after what we saw with the Steelers offense, right? I mean, Matt Canada gone and they got 400 yards. Things have changed, right? And things change quick in the NFL. Like the Denver Broncos, things change really fast. I was at the gym the other day and the guy said, I can show my tattoo off now, the Broncos. You know what I mean? He's all excited. Things just change quick in this league. And I think this Steelers offense, I'm not saying it's going to go out there and win you the slate, but I think what it does for your salary cap and what it allows you to get on your teams is worth it, right? You could easily see a Chain and Tyreek Hill be on the winner, right? Just guaranteed on the winner because of the scores they put up. And then Christian McCaffrey, you're going to need a cheap quarterback then at that point, and it could be Kenny Pickett. We've seen Desmond Ridder win the Millie Maker twice this season. So I'm not going to ignore it with the options that we got. So I like it. I think Deontay Johnson isn't bad. I think he's just too cheap. I think George Pickens is not a bad option too. I think you get to him. But my favorite play in the game is Jaylen Warren because of what he does for your full lineup. And then on the Arizona side of the ball, Trey McBride is 4.9. I don't mind him. I think he's solid. It's one of those things we have at cheaper tight ends this week, and maybe Trey McBride goes for that 20 DK point game now when people are off him more when they're on the cheap tight end construction. So I think he's worth kind of calling out. And then I do want to mention, I believe Greg Dortch, he was awesome the past week. I don't know. I want to be on Greg Dortch again. It just seems like it makes a lot of sense there, Rubio. He had 8 targets and 9 targets. Like, dude is 3.7K. That is someone I will go through on Saber. You know, I've been on the premium show talking him up, and he hasn't won me like the slate or anything. But, dude, 8 and 9 targets for a 3.7 guy in a trailing script is just really hard to argue with. And how cheap that stack would be to be able to get all those studs. So I'm in on Greg Dortch. I don't think he's a bad punt option.
Yeah, you're a big Greg Dortch fan. I just knew that was coming. I saw someone in the chat put something about Dortch. It was both Chris and Brad both put something about Dortch. I'm like,
those are premium members, Rubio. That's what they are. They watch the Up the Lock show.
We have a good question here from Zach Strommeyer. It's got past 2 weeks have been double tight ends, right? And that's the way I felt. What do you guys think about it this week? Obviously, we're only through half the games or so, and we get Brevin Jordan at min price, kind of allows you to build a lot. I think it's more 3 RB this week potentially, or more, more of that angle. But what do you think, Snyder? Do you think it could be a double tight end week again?
Potentially, like in a Million Maker or something. But I think there's I think the RB position is just too loaded this week that I'm going to gravitate more so to the 3 RBs there. And I will say something that I forgot to say about the Dortch there. Do we still need to watch the status of Michael Wilson? Is he going to be out again?
He looks to be out. I don't see him in these projections anywhere.
Okay, yeah, good then.
Yeah, perfect.
That could kind of just muddle up things there a little bit if he was in there.
Yeah, he is out. Yeah, perfect. So that's cool. Awesome. And go ahead and give your take on the double tight end situation this week specifically.
Yeah, I think one reason double tight end pops more times than not, and as someone who plays cash games every single week, and I have to have that terrible conversation with some of my buddies, I'm like, I don't want to do it, but it's because there's no value, right? But this week, I think, yes, we want to get these studs, but we do have value, right? We have the Zach Moss. And also another way I think the double tight end probably does hit in a way is it could probably hit naturally because Brevin Jordan could just be like this salary saver that helps get you Hill and McCaffrey and all these other good options. And then another tight end could fit in that bucket if those like, because listen, I mean, like, I like Greg Dortch, but like, what's Greg Dortch? Like, is he going to get me 25? Like some of these tight ends sometimes in the 4K range, and we saw Pat Freiermuth get 20 plus last week, right? Like there are some interesting options in that like high 3 and 4K range that you don't want to completely ignore. So yeah, I think double tight end, it's in play, but it's not in play as much like past weeks. And I think it's mainly in play because of the Brevin Jordan stuff. If you do run your teams and you see a double tight end that doesn't go Brevin Jordan, I would like look at all those teams specifically and just see what is it doing. And that'll tell you a lot about the slate when you're kind of just like researching.
Yeah, I think you could play like a George Kittle in there too, because he's like an upper tier, like a guy that could get you 35 points or something.
Yeah, like I ran my teams like raw, and I got 14 George Kittles on these 100 in the flex specifically. And like, let me just count and see. I mean, it's probably interesting to see. It's with Brevin Jordan, one with Freiermuth, another one with Laporta, another one with Njoku, Jordan. So you're definitely getting different mixes for sure. And I mean, George Kittle's price is 6.2K. And like, if you look at that 6.2 range, like that's what I always talk about. Like that, like high 7 to like low 6 is typically just a dead range. And it's not like a spot we love to roster a lot of players. Not the same this week. I know there's other guys we'll talk about, but point I'm getting at is I think you brought up a good point, Snyder, with the Kittle, and the optimizer saying the same exact thing.
Perfect. I appreciate you guys answering that, going into depth. And one last thing I just want to get to. I know that we're kind of lagging on time a bit. I apologize. But any chance you guys can give your thoughts on what your current cash game core looks like? I just want to mention that we have a whole bunch of cash game content on the site. Mangone, Bryce, and Holden do a show every single week going over the cash game slate. But Mangone, go ahead and feed him a couple of the best plays. I'm not going to allow you to say Zach Moss, but just for cash, just give someone like a small sample of what you talked about. Great point. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry about that. We have a premium cash game show that you can watch as well. So there's going to be content there if you want to check that out. But Brock Purdy is, I want to go cheap at quarterback, I think, this week. I think unless some value opens up that makes some sense. But I truly think that Brock Purdy is going to be the cash game quarterback for me. You mentioned the Zach Moss thing. I want to do my best to jam in either McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill. I think that's going to be important for sure. That's going to be a big decision point. If you only take one, what's going to be the cause of your 2v2s and 3v3s? I think Brevin Jordan is going to be a cash game lock for sure. So you're going to start with a lot of salary, right? When you play Moss, when you play Purdy, and you go Brevin Jordan, we got a lot of things to spend on. Can you get McCaffrey and can you get Tyreek Hill together? That depends on how you feel about your other plays that you want to play in the 2v2s and 3v3s.
Perfect. Thank you, Mangone. Let's go ahead and kick it over to our sixth game here. And it's a good one because this Detroit Lions defense has not been able to defend much of anything lately. And it's one of those spots where it's a dome. All right. The Lions are on the road and they are favorites against the New Orleans. I was about to say Pelicans, the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, the Saints offense has had its fair share of struggles. One piece of news that was important to follow was the Chris Olave news with a concussion last week. He was absolutely crushing. And then had to leave the game. I think he had a 7 for 114 at one point or something like that. I think you might know a little bit better than me, Snyder. I think you were on him. This week, he looks to be in. That's a huge deal because I think that I think he's going to be in. I guess he's not yet cleared concussion protocol. So it's completely up in the air at this point. If he is out, that wide receiving core definitely does take a hit. And I think it brings in some plays like even Taysom Hill to a major degree. You got Alvin Kamara here, who's only projected for 5% ownership. The Saints offense could look a little bit intriguing, and obviously Olave himself could be a great play. Looking over on the Lions side, you have two guys projected for above 10% ownership, and then it's Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It seems like this game doesn't have a whole lot of high ownership, despite being in a dome with a total in the high 40s. Snyder, who do you like in this one?
This game is kind of interesting to me because I kind of could see this game kind of almost being like a bust. I think a lot of people are going to see the two offenses in this dome game. The Lions offense has been very good. You got Gibbs, you got Montgomery, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just worry that the Saints kind of try and muddle this game up. If they don't have Olave, I could see like this being a big like Taysom Hill game where they try and get him involved in various different ways, try and get Kamara going. I think Detroit's going to try and run the ball. I think they're going to try and lean on the run more in this game just because of the recent struggles that Goff's been having, and the Saints secondary is decent. They still got a good secondary there. We've seen Goff just kind of struggle as of late. He didn't struggle as bad last week against the Packers. He still lost, but threw 3 interceptions against the Bears the week before. He took a few sacks last game too. I think we see the Lions try and establish it on the ground here this week with Gibbs and Montgomery. I don't think I'll get St. Brown because I'd rather just get all the way up to like Tyreek or something. 8-5 just makes it tough for me to actively pursue St. Brown. Hasn't been crushing, and as Goff's kind of been struggling recently. But I think this is a spot where Taysom Hill's 5-2. Wouldn't surprise me if this is one of those games where Taysom puts up like 25 points, tilts everybody to no end. He's one of those guys that you could almost play in a double tight end if you want. He's hit that 20-point mark a couple times. I think he only scored like 9 last week or something, but I don't really see too much in this game. There's other games I just actively want to target more, as we've got a couple games in the afternoon that I really like to target. So I'm going to be kind of lower on this game, maybe getting to I could even play the Saints defense maybe at 2,700. I think there's some other defenses I'd rather play over them, but Really don't see too much. I think if we do have Olave is out, our guy Chris Kirkwood is there at 3K min price. He caught a couple passes last week. Maybe that's one of those 3K guys you throw in there. I tried to make A.T. Perry work on a couple teams last week in some mid-range tournaments, and that did not work. He was on the field a lot. He caught one pass for 7 yards, but Kirky outperformed him.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense there. Mangone, I'm going to go ahead and shoot you a scenario because you're on Up to Lock. You do a great job Up to Lock. You're with DC and Holden. You guys cover up from 11:30 until lock, so 1 p.m. This game starts at 1 p.m. So you're going to have news for Chris Olave. We might even get it tonight, but I'm going to throw the situation out here. And if you do want the news, if it's different than this scenario, subscribe. Giblets 44% off your first month or week. Mangone, I'm going to pitch to you that Olave is out. Who does that benefit the most? Who do you get the most interest in? And you don't have to pretend he's in, right? You'll do that on the premium show if that's the case. But Olave's out. What are you doing with this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just helps. I think it helps Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara more. If I had to pick, sure, you can take a chance on some of these cheap 3K receivers like Perry, Bowden, and Kirkwood. I don't feel super confident in either. I'll say that. Bowden Jr., one thing I'll give him, yes, he's more of a gadget guy, but I don't know. He seems like the guy that was getting the work. And I don't know. I feel like if they're going to need a play, they're going to go to him rather than some of these other guys. So I guess it'd be Bowden Jr. I'm kind of hoping Olave plays just because I don't want it to boost Kamara that much more as well. But I do think this is going to really help Taysom Hill. I'm not ignoring Taysom Hill this week. Not saying I will for sure get Taysom Hill on teams, but I'm going to bump him. I know he's priced up. That's one of the issues that you're going to run into, but I'm not ignoring Taysom Hill. I think he's definitely someone that I'm going to boost his projection up. I think you have to boost him in order to probably get some for sure. And then I don't mind Juwan Johnson. I think he could be a really good beneficiary as well instead of these receivers. He's now finally healthy. 3.4K is a pretty good price for him. I like him. I think he's someone that I'm going to consider as well. I'm not excited about this Lions side of the ball that much. I think you could make a case for spinning the roulette wheel with the Williams, Reynolds, and Raymond, but I just don't really want to. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8.5. I just don't know if I'm going to use my salary there and I'm going to spend for other options. Listen, I want to play guys in this Eagles and Niners game, and eventually guys just kind of miss the cut. Not saying I'm going to take him out of the pool, but not saying I'm prioritizing St. Brown. I'm probably going to be very under on him, and I'll probably be under on Gibbs and Montgomery too. If I played one, it'd probably be Gibbs, just because I think Gibbs is the explosive guy. Gibbs is the one that no matter what the situation is, I think he'll be involved in the offense, whether they're trailing, whether they're ahead. And I just think I'd rather bet on if you need a running back in this game, then it's because of the explosive plays from someone like Jahmyr Gibbs. And if this game is needed on a Millie Maker winner, well, it's because it's really interacted and gone crazy. And that's probably because Jahmyr Gibbs has had a pretty big game.
Thank you, Mangone. And don't forget, it's pronounced Lynn Bowden, not Bowden. Goodness gracious, terrible pronunciation.
I pronounce all the names wrong. It's part of my duty here at One Pure Sports.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely just a bit. Let's go ahead and move on. And real quick, I just want to mention Taysom Hill plus 155 anytime touchdown score. What are the odds we see that on Big T's betting slip tomorrow? I'm going to think the odds are greater than 155. But let's go ahead and move on to one of the intriguing running back spots because we get Zach Moss here. So Jonathan Taylor obviously out. Zach Moss will be the lead running back as he has filled already in just this season alone. He's been absolutely awesome this season. Zach Moss is 4.6K. All right, he is projected to be the highest owned player on the slate at over 50% ownership. Projected, and this is the main slate Millie Maker, right? Probably higher in single entries. He is the only player above 15% in this game. The next one is Michael Pittman Jr. at 15%, and then it dips down to 10% here where it's Josh Downs. What do you think about this game, Snyder, and what are you doing with Zach Moss?
I ran those sims right before the show with the Millie Maker on the ROARI, and I've never seen this before, but Zach Moss hit on 100% of the sims on the top 50, and I 64% of the 5,000 pool there. So that's pretty wild. We kind of avoided this Tennessee defense from the rushing aspect early in the year. Since then, they've been worse against the run. So I think he could. I don't want to overthink it. I think he just jam in Zach Moss with the price tag there. I mean, that's way too cheap. the Titans still haven't gave up mega games to running backs this year. I mean, they gave up 23 last week, but they've been under 20 in 4 of the last 6. So you could maybe make a case where if Zach Moss gets like 15 or 16, you can definitely beat those teams with other options on this slate. So I don't think I'm going to lock Moss in, but I definitely want to be at least with the field or slightly over with the field. I think this is just too good of a spot. Zach Moss has kind of rejuvenated his career this year. He's had a couple good games this year, 20, 25, 36. I think I'm just going to end up kind of clicking his name often, at least get what the field is there, which will probably be, oh man, I bet he'll probably be right around 50%. I mean, in the Million Maker, I think he's probably right around 50 to 60%. I think in like your smaller entries, like your 3 maxes that you play in, man, he could reach probably 70% in some of those. I think if you want to get different, though, I really like Josh Downs in the passing attack here. This Tennessee defense has been a pass funnel. I think we get Downs here at much, much lower ownership, probably around 15%. I really like Josh Downs at 5-1. I love his upside. We've seen some big games from him earlier this year. 13 targets last week. Only caught 5 of them, but the targets are there. I think Downs is the guy because I think people are going to kind of gravitate towards Pittman. I think Pittman will be the higher owned than him like he has been. Pittman put up a strong game last week. I mean, he's probably still going to see his 10 to 12 targets that he usually does. So I think the passing attack on the Colts side is fine. And then I actually like Tennessee to win this game. I like the Tennessee side. I'm actually going to go back to Will Levis on a couple of teams. I'm going to play Will Levis at 5.2K. I think I'd rather play Levis over Kenny Pickett there, and Levis is going to be like 1% owned. We have seen it, not that much lately, but I think the Levis Hopkins stack is something I'm going to be interested in, and then you can run it back with Moss or run it back with Downs and Moss or something. That's a way to kind of get different in the Million Maker because nobody's going to play Levis Hopkins with the Zach Moss. So I think that's kind of the way I'm going to try and get different in like the Million Maker in some of the large field tournaments.
Yeah, 100%. I do like what you said about Josh Downs. It felt like every time he just got targeted on every single drive, he at least got 1 or 2 targets. I think he ended up with over 13 targets last game alone. And it's a similar spot. Not to say that the Bucs and Titans are the same exact team or whatever, but they do funnel a lot to the same area. So I don't mind that at all for a tournament perspective. Man, go ahead and give your Zach Moss take and then anything else you want to break down in this game.
Yeah, Zach Moss, definitely a really great play. I will likely be overweight on him. The question is, how much will I be overweight? I don't know if I'm going to go 100%, but I'll say this. My first Sims run, I cranked up some uniques, right? I did some, I changed some settings, and man, I'm getting 96%. That's more than I thought. I thought it would be like maybe like 75 or 80, right? I didn't think it'd be there. And that was on 4 unique. So, but I think he's one of the best plays on the slate. Very hard to ignore. I think he's good chalk. Very simple. The question with like the Will Levis stuff is like, Snyder, I don't mind. I really don't. He's one of those guys that I could see like if I fell on him and got like 2% or 3%, like, yeah, sure, fine. But I'm probably not doing it like single entry or anything like that. The key is I think it's a Million Maker play. The other issue I have is I wish this game was in the Dome. It being in Tennessee is a little more frustrating, I think. But we've been targeting the Colts every single week. Why are we stopping now? This is the defense I think we want to be targeting. So overall, I am with you, Snyder. I think it's not the worst idea, but it's more of a Million Maker play. Don't need to have a huge percentage and kind of move on. I like Josh Downs. I don't want to pay for Pittman's price tag. I think there's other receivers I prefer in that range. But Josh Downs, I really like. He's one in that range. I think is in the cash game conversation as well. So that's kind of my overall takeaways. One more tight end I guess I'll list is Chigakongwu. I don't think is the worst idea if you're mixing and matching tight ends, just looking for a pivot off of the Brevin Jordan chalk. But other than that, not a super appealing game besides the Zach Moss stuff and Josh Downs.
Perfect. And I wish I could get to more of these comments and stuff. However, we do have a timeline to keep. I don't want this running over 90 minutes. We might approach that. So I will go ahead and move on to the next game. And that is the Carolina Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So this is the game where Out of the 3 afternoon games, this one's probably the lowest owned because the Cleveland Browns and Rams could have some ownership, just a little bit, not a ton. And then the 49ers and Eagles will definitely have some ownership. In this one, you get Rachaad White north of 20%, both defenses above 10%, and then there's a stark drop-off all the way down to Mike Evans at 6. This is an interesting game. Rachaad White has definitely picked up the pace a little bit overall in his entire season. He started off really slow, and then since then, he's been incredible. Maybe incredible is a little too kind, but you know what you're getting with him. You know that you're getting a lot of work in the pass game if they're trailing or not, and he's getting a good matchup against the Carolina Panthers where, any bell cow running back is probably going to get there. So, Snyder, tell me a little bit about what you plan to do with Rachaad White, and then kind of dive into any of these other plays that could interest you.
Yeah, I've been playing White pretty much every week, at least in my tournament pool. I think White is in a great spot here too against a really bad Panthers defense here. Short home favorites here. We got a low total here in this game, but I still like White quite a bit here. I think he's gonna see that same workload. I mean, the Panthers have given up 20+ points to the RB position in seven of the last 9 games. So I think we see White hit that 20-point mark here again. Love the price tag at 6'3". You can easily fit him in there. He's going to see work in the rushing and passing game. So that's another thing that checks another box. So I'm definitely going to be overweight on White there. And then from the receiving standpoint there, I think a guy you could look at, another pump play there would be Jonathan Mingo. He's kind of a guy I've just been kind of watching from a distance. Haven't been playing him yet, but 7 targets, 6 targets, caught 4 for 60 last week. I think he makes for an interesting play in that starts and scrubs that we're looking for value and stuff. I think Mingo is a fine option against this Tampa defense. So I'm going to have some exposure to Mingo. You could look at Trey Palmer too as he would be like another thin million maker type play, but he's caught 4 passes in back-to-back games. He's got the upside to break one. I think he's a guy you could have in the pool as well at 3.2K as another punt option. We got Adam Thielen finally under 7K. He hasn't really looked that good since week 4 or 5. He is getting older in age. I mean, I think the time to target him was earlier in the season, so I'll probably continue to be off at Thielen there. I think my main targets in this game is going to be White, and then I like Mingo. Mingo is one of my favorite punt plays, I think, on this slate. I mean, you can always go to K. Dotton too at 3.2K. Just another one of those tight ends in that range to help save salary there. He's caught 4 passes in 5 of his last 6 games. So Otten's definitely in play, I think, as well.
Yeah, whoever told me that running back is loaded at the start of the show, you lied to me. I'm looking at it. I'm like, this running back room sucks, bro. Like, I'm looking at Rachaad White north of 20%. I didn't draft Rachaad White at all in best ball and stuff, but I was very happy with the first 7-8 weeks of the season. But he's definitely picked it up over the last few weeks. But I'm actually considering Rachaad White as a good play in this slate. I didn't want to coming in. So whoever said it was loaded, thanks for lying to me, getting my hopes up. What are you doing with Rachaad White in the rest of this game?
So, Rubio, this is how you figure out if it's a good running back slate or not. I want you to X Zach Moss and then run it again and see what it looks like. I mean, I already know how that looks. I think like when you look at the running backs like you're talking about, like you can make cases for them to be good in tournaments, but like at the end of the day, like a bunch of them are going to miss. You know what I mean? Like, sure, maybe some get there, but I don't know. So, I like Rachaad White actually. Just his role is too good to pass up on. And it's a really good matchup too. I love Rachaad White in this spot. Mike Evans is in play. I don't know what Chris Godwin's status is going to be, but Mike Evans is in play on any slate. Just tournament, great play. And then if Godwin sits, I think Trey Palmer is an interesting cheap option. So it's really mainly those Buccaneers options for me. And then that's really it. I do think Trey Palmer becomes chalkier and chalkier if Godwin sits, but question is how chalky? We'll see. Probably not as much as you think, but I would want to make sure to be overweight on him, I think, regardless.
Any thoughts on Mingo?
I've seen the Mingo talk. Yeah, I think we all have these random receivers who just kind of like play here and there. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a bad idea, but I also wouldn't say lock it in or anything.
Definitely would want Palmer though if Godwin's out.
Yeah, I mean Mingo's fine, Slayer. I don't hate it, but it's just we'll see how much I actually end up getting, right? When I go through and actually allocate those cheap receivers, I might get some, and I won't totally pass on it, I think.
Yeah, he's not a guy you want like 10 to 15% of, but if you have a little bit, I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's like if you're getting like 2 or 3%, you're doing it for the stars and scrims construction.
So just to make sure on Chris Godwin too, I actually missed that. I didn't see that in my rundown there. Chris Godwin missed practice on Friday with a neck issue. All right, so that's a big concern. He could legitimately miss that game. Trey Palmer, where was he a stud at, Snyder? I can't remember. Where was he a stud at in college? Let me know.
Down the road here in Lincoln, I think.
Lincoln, Nebraska. So if you needed another reason, I know AP and Snyder are for sure clicking on Trey Palmer's name if they get the Chris Godwin news.
I was going to say Tennessee because I forgot the Trey Palmer experience in Nebraska because it was so bad in Nebraska. I guess it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. He was always chalking at the Big Ten slate.
It was fine. It was whatever. But
he was the only athlete on Nebraska's team.
That's true. He was the only actual guy you'd ever like think about weekly to play. So that's impressive alone.
And he was a stud in the preseason. He's actually looked really good too. I mean, just to mention another name, if you're like, man, I don't really want to play a chalk Trey Palmer, Devin Tompkins, guaranteed to have very similar props to him. And he has dropped a couple touchdowns this season, and Baker Mayfield has missed him down the field. And if you're wondering how I know that, it's because I play some showdown slates with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I always click on Devin Tompkins' name over a really chalky Trey Palmer because they always have the same props. Trey Palmer definitely gets the bump. Trey Palmer has been the better wide receiver all year. But Devin Tompkins, if you really wanted a deep tournament pivot, that's something to kind of look at. Another game here. We got the Cleveland Browns and Los Angeles Rams. And I was shocked to see that David Njoku is going to be over 24% owned projected. Crazy because last week he wasn't that chalk in a great spot. Sure enough, he only gets 11 instead of 13. It cost me $6K. We'll just go ahead and cry about that the entire time. But also, two other players projected for double-digit ownership is Elijah Moore. This one surprised me, but it makes sense at 3,500. Kyron Williams, fresh off absolutely crushing the afternoon slate and the main slate with 44 fantasy points. Wasn't it 44? Absolutely crazy high. Obviously, the Cleveland defense is pretty good, but they've been pretty much exposed on the road. Snyder, what are you doing with this game? And also tell me a little bit about Jerome Ford when you get the chance. And I forgot to mention Joe Flacco season.
Yeah, I think you can go right back to Kyron here. People say the Browns defense is good, but the Browns defense has really struggled on the road this year. That's kind of been a leak for them. They've been good at home, but and they've actually given up some games to running backs this year. 5 of the last 7 weeks, they've given up 22-plus points to the RB position. So I think you can go right back to Kyron Williams here at home as a favorite here. So I don't think that many people are going to go to Kyron either. So he's kind of one of the guys I had circled as a guy I want to get overweight on in tournaments. Maybe he even makes the 3 max pool or something for me this week. So I do like Kyron Williams. I think Ford at 5.5 is fine if you want to get there. I mean, he's looked all right. Hasn't really crushed, but he's been double digits all but 2 games this year. So I think Ford is definitely a guy that if he hit the pool, wouldn't be a guy I went to and tried to X out or anything. At 5.5, that's a fair price tag for him there in the dome. So I think he's fine. I really do like Kyron though. And the price tag on Cooper Kupp is getting low, especially on FanDuel. I think he's really cheap on FanDuel. So he's maybe an option for tournaments, but man, you look at the box scores, and I don't know what happened to Kupp, but he hasn't even hit 20 yards in the last 2 games. So rough scene there for him. Puka, you could get there if you want. I just don't see myself really getting to any of these guys. I don't want to force any of these guys in. I think they're just too thin with the other options we have on the wide receiver position and such. But I really do I want to get overweight on Kyron Williams. I think he's the guy that could kind of break the slate here at 10% or lower ownership.
Yeah, that's perfect. Mangone. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here. Elijah Moore, with Joe Flacco as his quarterback, is projecting to be chalk. With the quarterback carousel there lately, he's had 23 targets in his last 3 games. Not bad for 3,500. Is he a cheap wide receiver that is in your pool that you're considering in any capacity this week?
I don't think I want cheap Elijah Moore chalk. That doesn't sound interesting to me. I will say is there a connection there between Flacco with the Jets and Elijah Moore at the Jets? Was there a thing there? I'll look into it. Maybe my opinion will change. We'll check that out on the Up the Lock show, I guess. I did love Kyron Williams last week. He was my play of the day. And listen, I'm going back to him for sure. It's It's not as good of a spot as last week, but it's still, I think, worth going after. Yes, Cleveland is a team that, sure, they're good on defense, but we saw this Broncos team just run all over them. Why can't Kyren Williams? I mean, the role's just too good to pass up. So I am definitely interested here in Kyren Williams. Not as interested in spending my money on these other Rams options. I just don't want to spend for Kupp and Puka. Like, there's other ways I'd rather use my salary. Matthew Stafford, not going to be playing him. Tyler Higbee, I don't need to get there. And then on the Cleveland side, there's just, I mean, Njoku, I don't mind at 4-1. Yeah, and then I think from there, I think that's mainly it. I just don't want to really support a Joe Flacco ran offense. And I don't think that's a crazy thing. I'll also take the defense against Joe Flacco. I'm definitely interested in that. He's a statue that'll definitely fall over for sure. I thought that the last time he played, so I'm going to think it this time.
Love it, love it. So yeah, that's kind of a good take. I mean, Kyren Williams, you were on it, for your main core last time out there, I remember, and obviously crushing the slate. This is an interesting one here. So obviously 7,200 running back across the board isn't that great outside Zach Moss, like you said. So yeah, I could be sold on some Kyren Williams. So let's go ahead.
Just looking at the Browns on the road, I was just looking into that more. Their defense on the road, they've given up 24 plus points every road game this year, and they haven't allowed, I think the most they've allowed at home in the last 3 home games was 10 points, 0 points, and 17 points, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, another thing to call out there, when you have Joe Flacco in at quarterback and all these other terrible guys, well, your defense might be great, but your defense gets dog tired, right? They're exhausted by the 3rd and 4th, and they break down. So, like, not saying this Browns defense isn't good, but when your offense can't stay on the field, the defense gets tired legs, and the offense just churns out points against them. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing a little bit of a decline in this Browns team. And one reason why you're seeing the Broncos be a little bit better is they're killing some clock, and Russell Wilson walks up to the line, and they're making sure their defense isn't killed. So that's a little factor I think that plays into it.
Love it. Perfect. So let's go ahead and get to the last game. And the Eagles have been the late game hammer like at least 3 or 4 times in the last 2 months or whatever. And it's a good late game hammer to have. Obviously, if you had the Bills-Eagles stack last game, you probably had a great time from 4:25 till 8 o'clock. You celebrated the hell out of overtime, and you had a great time. This week, you get a similar situation with an elite team with the San Francisco 49ers heading to Philadelphia. Slight weather concerns, right, Snyder? But it might not be a huge factor. We get Brock Purdy at 12%, Deebo Samuel at 13%, Brandon Ayuk at 12%, but the most talked player on this entire game is Chris McCaffrey. Surprise, surprise, 28%. This is an interesting one because obviously every bit of the ownership is on San Francisco. A.J. Brown is projected under 10%, and you were telling me before the show that A.J. Brown is very much a squeaky wheel narrative play this week. He's been chirping a lot in practice, and I love it when wide receivers are pissed off because that means I just put him in my lineup, and it makes for a great run back if you're willing to spend the salary in this game. Are you interested in some Purdy stacks, and is it an Ayuk week or a Deebo week? And then tell me a little bit more about the other players too.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be well overweight on Brock Purdy this week. I think he's the best quarterback on the slate, price per dollar at 6.1K. And I do like Ayuk this week. Ayuk crushes man-to-man. Deebo is the zone guy. Ayuk is the man guy. The Philadelphia is going to play a lot of man coverage here. I think Brandon Ayuk is going to get loose a couple times in this game. I think Ayuk has a big game. He's going to be relatively lower owned. I know McCaffrey is probably going to be upwards of 20-25% owned this week. So he's a great play as well. You want to, like Mangone said, he's going to try and prioritize him or Tyreek and Cash. He's a great option there. Brock and Ayuk. I think Kittle's a guy that's going to go overlooked as well. The price tag's up there at 6.2. He's a guy I want to try and get a little bit of too, a little bit overweight on the 5 to 7% he'll probably be at. So I think this game is a nuts. We saw a ton of money come in on San Francisco when this line got opened up. I think it's moved 6 points now, or 5.5 points. It's up to 3 for San Fran now. Just a horrible scheduling spot for the Eagles here. I mean, they come off the overtime win last week. They've had 2 tough games before that as well. I think the Eagles definitely need to come out stronger in the first half in this game. The last 4 weeks, I think they've scored 10 or 14 points at most. I think the last 2 weeks they've only scored 7 in the first half. So I think the Eagles definitely need to come out a little stronger in the first half here. And then A.J. Brown at 8.8 is going to be low owned. He's getting a little irritated, it sounded like, in practice there. He hasn't been getting the ball as much. I think he's a great option. Devonta Smith, this guy has been playing the last couple of weeks. He's been working out well. So I'm definitely going to go back to Devonta too. I'm not going to play a Hurts double here just because of the pricing, like we kind of talked about with Miami there. But I do want to have Hurts in my player pool and try and get overweight on him with either Devonta or A.J. Brown. I think the addition of Lane Johnson is going to be huge, though, as well for the Eagles in this game as well. I don't see myself really getting the Swift that much in this game, though I know he's going to be really low owned. It'd be super easy to get overweight on him if you wanted to, but I mainly just want to target Hurts, Smith, and Brown. And then I really like Ayuk from the 49er standpoint. I think Ayuk is my favorite 49er.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm with you. Ayuk is one of my favorite plays this week too. And man, Gillen, you ready for this stat?
Yeah, I'm ready.
It's a man versus zone stat. It's a 49er stat. It is the Eagles usually have been playing under this current formation a lot more man than the league average. It's actually like top 25% of the league that they play man on. And that means it's Brandon Ayuk over Deebo Samuel. So what do you take of that news?
Yeah, Rubio just did that to dunk on my head for the last time for going Ayuk over Deebo. But I did think it was an Ayuk week. I am excited to play some Ayuk, but I'm going to play Deebo too. I'm playing both for sure. I'm going to have exposure to both of them. I'm going to be overweight on them. Brock Purdy's up going to be someone that's going to be very chalky, but I don't know. I'm going to eat this chalk. I really don't care. It's just the spot against the Eagles seems too good. Like Ayuk, like Deebo, like Kittle, concentrated offense. Got to like McCaffrey. The big debate is going to be like, how can I afford McCaffrey, right? And if I had to pick McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, like that's going to be a really tough decision. I think Rubio would lean Christian McCaffrey because of the state of the running back position, but I don't know. He did like the Miami Dolphins a lot. So that's my point is it's a tough decision point, right? Where I do want to just get both of them in there, which is why these spend down at quarterbacks are going to be intriguing, right? It's like, that's why Snyder mentioned Will Levis. That's why I mentioned Kenny Pickett at some point, right? I'm going to have to play some cheap quarterbacks to kind of make it work for sure, especially if I'm MMEing. So yeah, like all those options, like A.J. Brown. Devonta Smith is fine. He feels expensive. He's one of those guys. I'll probably bump him up a little bit to see if I can get him, but if I can't, it's not the end of the world. Since you don't like running back much, Rubio, and I don't typically like to target the San Francisco 49ers with running backs, I think DeAndre Swift, though, should deserve a mention. And the reason why is he's getting a lot more of the tight end work on the short yardage stuff, right, in the pass game. So I think DeAndre Swift is a very interesting tournament play that you could use to get different in this game. And then if you have the money for Jalen Hurts, yeah, he's a great play. He's also a great play on FanDuel where it's easier to grab that top-end quarterback. So that's something else to mention as well. But overall, yeah, I'm going to love everyone in this game. This is a game I want to be overweight on. I'm going to be under on some other games just so I can be over on this, right? Like, there's a good chance I might be a little more under on Tua in general just because I want to get more of Purdy and Hurts, right? Not saying I'll be under on the Miami Dolphins in general, but just saying quarterback-wise, I want to get over on this game in general.
Awesome. Yes, I'm with you guys. I think it's a good game to get over on, and it's going to be a great one to see. And I'm excited to see the cores too. I know we got a full group of cores that will be going up later tonight and early into tomorrow morning. So be sure to check it all out. Giblets 44% off your first payment on your first month or week here at Run Pure Sports. So remember, I can't let you guys go without getting your play of the day. And remember the one rule, and I swear to God, if you break this rule, I'll break your kneecaps. Under 20% is the one parameter, and we're using SaberSim's ownership to make judgment. And, speaking of 20%, I still haven't gotten my free lunch from Mangone. But I just want my Chipotle. I haven't had my Chipotle. Maybe I can enjoy it for lunch tomorrow. Anyway, but Snyder, we'll start with you. 10 games to choose from. Only one play of the slate. And who is that one for week 13?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Zach Moss.
Oh, I'm
going to stay
all the way to Lincoln, Nebraska.
I'm going to stay in that same game we were just at. I really like Brandon Ayuk at 7-2. If he's going to be anywhere around 10%, I think it's easy to get overweight on him. Him versus man is the spots we want to attack. I think we could see a game similar to what he did against Tampa Bay there with 150 plus and a touchdown. So I definitely I like Brandon Ayuk this week.
Perfect. Brandon Ayuk is Snyder's Soldiers play of the day. Wait. Let me beat it. Let me beat Mangone to it because he was going to try and do it. Snyder Soldiers, the play of the slate. Brandon Ayuk for Snyder. And now Mangone, give me your play of the slate for week 13.
So I really wanted to say Ayuk too, Snyder, but you kind of took it. But
I could tell on your face that you wanted to say Ayuk because when he took it, I saw you kind of went back to the computer. You're like,
yeah. I will say, Rubio, how about this? Can I say I'll give it on the premium up the lock show? Just hold the people, make them pay to get it. I mean, it was good last week. I want to do a little more research. I jumped on here late, try to make this, try to help get the show moving a little bit. I heard you were taking too long with everything, so
you can have Ayuk. I can give a different one.
No, it's okay, Snyder. Let the people subscribe for Giblets 44 to get 44% off. That's what we're gonna do. Rubio can give his play. Rubio's gonna give an absolute banger. There's no Cincinnati Bengals on the slate, so his bias will be out of the way, which is encouraging. So that's good.
So Mangone hates you guys. I mean, it's clear as day. So, I'll just say it. I would never withhold a play of the slate for you guys. I think Mangone's just afraid personally. All right, so that Mangone's afraid to get crucified here on the show. I guarantee you. He texted me personally. He said, who's my play of the slate? He said Russell Wilson right now, but no, he said Broncos are bad chalk. That's his play of the slate. I'll make it for him. It's a fade the Broncos play of the slate. My play of the slate here, it kind of goes hand in hand with Snyder. I was debating on Tua in a lot of ways this week, but I have not had any difficulty in attacking this Philadelphia Eagles, secondary. And I think that you pair Ayuk with Brock Purdy this week. So Brock Purdy is my play of the slate, Snyder. I think that we're going to go hand in hand. We're going to have the late night hammer. It's going to be around 7:30 when Purdy connects to Ayuk for a game-winning touchdown. We're going to celebrate maybe by winning $1 million. And if it's not Snyder, if it's not me, and if it's not Mangone, then I hope it's one of y'all. And thank you for joining us tonight. And have a great rest of your day and good luck tomorrow.